The movie begins with an actual clip of Hitler doing the Nazi salute. Soldiers in full uniform, marching with their rifles resting on their shoulders. The year is 1941, Germany occupies Belarusia. Nazi battalion parades through a bridge and SS death squads along with local police round up Jews. Within weeks, 50,000 are murdered. A Jew is being executed via firing squad. 1 million more await deportation and death. Nazi soldiers are committing atrocities, marking houses, and shooting those who try to escape. This is based on a real scenario. In this scene, children are crying, calling for their mothers, while Nazi soldiers are loading them up to a truck. From a distance, behind a tree, brothers, Zuz and Osail Bielski, observe the situation. They saw their fellow Jews marching holding shovels escorted by armed Nazi troopers. Osail is speaking but is quickly silenced by Zuz. They then go to their house, only to find their father shot dead along with their dog. Zuz then proceeded inside their home while holding an axe. Zuz notices the floorboard is loose and begins to remove it while Osail is watching. Afterward, they discovered a youngster in possession of a knife. Petrified and trembling, the youngster flees. Osail cried out, "Aaron." Aaron then realizes that it was his two older brothers, and he reaches out his hand to Zuz. The three brothers then secured supplies and some tools. Zuz noticed a knife with some Hebrew alphabet stuck at the door's mole post as they were about to go. He then grabs it and shoves it into his pocket. Afterward, the three brothers retreat to the woods. It's the Lipicsanska forest, in Poland, in August 1941. A man arrives and throws a rock at a sleeping Osail and Aaron. It takes a while for Osail to realize that the man who threw the stone is the eldest of the brothers, Tuvia. The four Bielski brothers unite emotionally at the death of their parents. The three older brothers gather on a bonfire while Aaron, in the distance playing with an anthill. Aaron sees a woman stumbling and proceeds to follow her. He discovers a couple of Jews near a mass grave. Aaron returns to his brothers by the bonfire and brings along the other Jews. Zuz then calls out Tuvia and asks his older brother how they could feed the other Jews. Tuvia suggests approaching their non-Jewish farmer friend, Konstanty. It's getting close to dusk. The wife of Konstanty is cutting meat while Tuvia sits in Konstanty. He hands out his pistol and 4 bullets to Tuvia. A car approaches Konstanty's house. Tuvia is running to the barn to hide and discover there are a few Jews hiding. As the car stops in front of Konstanty's house, 3 Nazi soldiers get out. Konstanty greets them, converses with the Nazi officer. After the Nazi soldiers left, Tuvia thanks Konstanty and retreats to the woods and the other Jews. On the following evening, Tuvia visits the house of the Nazi who killed his parents. He then shot the Nazi along with his 2 sons and retreated to the woods. A few more Jews arrive at the Perelaz forest camp in October 1941, thanks to the Bielski brothers and their business. Zuz then learns the death of his wife from a man who comes from the same city his wife was in. Tuvia comforts his younger brother, Zuz, as he mourns the death of his wife. Angered by the death of his wife, Zuz raids houses of Nazi apologists at the same time procures supplies along with his brother Tuvia and a few other Jew volunteers. On another evening, the Bielskis ambush Nazi soldiers. On the crossfire, the Tuvia and Zuz separate with Osail. Osail runs on the opposite side of his brothers. The next day, the Jews from the camp argue, and Tuvia shuts them up by shouting. He then explains what they have to do to survive. From there, the Bielski partisan is being founded. The partisan goes on a food resupply run. They visit Konstanty's farm and discover Konstanty hanged at his barn. Konstanty's wife then shows the partisan the other Jews in hiding in his barn. The Bielski brothers bury Konstanty and retreat to the woods. A few days later, a patrol is spotted. The Bielski partisans panic and retreat further into the woods. The patrol catches up and a shootout ensues. The shootout stops when the Nazi patrol realizes the disadvantage on terrain. The Nazi patrol stops the pursuit and the Bielski partisans retreat further into the forest. After a few hours of walking, the partisans rested. Tuvia and Zuz decide to scout the area. A few armed men show up to the unsuspecting Bielski brothers. The armed men were the October Otriad, a resistance composed of mostly Russians commanded by Viktor Pachenko. Viktor Pachenko was affiliated with the Red Army, Soviet Union. In the Nalibaka forest, the Bielski partisans build a new camp. It turns out that there are more Jews from the ghetto than first thought, which led Zuz to doubt Tuvia. Tuvia and Zuz had an argument. A fistfight between the brothers Tuvia and Zuz ensues. In the heat of the fight, Tuvia is about to bash Zuz with a rock when Osail shouts. Osail's shout prompted the older brothers to stop fighting. Zuz decides to leave the camp to join the October Otriad along with a few men. Tuvia and Osail sneak to the ghetto and meet with the elders in a secret gathering in the next scene. Tuvia and Osail propose to the elders and other Jews to escape the ghetto and join them in the woods. The elder makes a valid argument that they should stay in the ghetto since there's no certainty if they can survive at the forest camp with winter coming. The elder explains that for everyone who leaves the ghetto, the Nazis kill 20 in return. Tuvia tells the elder that they are being allied with the Russians, October Otriad. Many Jews at the secret gathering decide to go with them. As night falls, the Jews line up to a small opening at the ghetto wall. The hole was the way to escape. As every person enters the spot, they leave the golden star of David patch. The patch which signifies that they are a Nazi prisoner. Morning came, and the escapees and Tuvia and Osael made it to the forest camp. Some of the escapees are being reunited with their relatives. The ghetto escapees line up and proceed to give their valuables to the partisans. A man explains that this was needed to trade for food or other supplies. Also, the escapees are required to state their profession so that the partisan can identify what they can do for the partisan. An older man states that he is a watchmaker. He was given a broken gun by Tuvia, and the elder guy repaired it. As a consequence, Tuvia is quite pleased with the outcome. Tuvia rides in on his white horse and announces that everyone will be given tasks and that no one will be exempt from working. Tuvia also explains that they must supply the Russians in exchange for their protection, and pregnancy is forbidden. After explaining, Tuvia rides away. At the train track, Gramov is teaching Zeus how to plant a mine. Other members of the October Otriad stay on guard. Gramov twists the detonator of the mine to make it go live. As he was twisting, he made an explosion noise as if the mine had exploded. It catches Zeus off guard. Zeus swerves to avoid the explosion, but it's too late. Back at camp, Shimon returns to the camp and passes on his chess knowledge to Osael and Aaron. After that, Bella had a conversation with Osael alone. According to Bella, Osael should marry Chaya if he wants to have a family. In response to his commitment, Osael got down on one knee and asking Chaya to marry him. She finally said yes. Later that day, they exchanged vows. In this scene, winter came at the last month of the year 1941. It was brutally cold. People are becoming ill as a result of a lack of supplies. Due to lack of food, Tuvia sacrificed his horse. Later on, Tuvia went inside a house and spoke with Lilka. Lilka was about to go on a supply run, and Tuvia offered his coat. On the supply run, Lilka encounters a dog which she shot and carried back to camp. Tuvia tries to get medication from the October Otriad but is turned down. Tuvia finally caught a glimpse of Zeus after a lengthy absence. As a last resort, they snuck into a Nazi hospital and received treatment. At the hospital, Zeus noticed that Tuvia was not feeling well. He decides to let Tuvia stay in the car while he and the other two resistance members raid the hospital. A shootout ensues and kills the members of the resistance. Zeus made it back to the car with the medicine, but he was shot multiple times. Zeus was able to recover from the gunshots. The food supply was deficient, and the rebellious Arkady was demanding more food. As Arkady forcefully grabs Chaya's hand, Osael pushes Arkady and tells him to get back in line. A fight between Osael and Arkady occurs. Both get their knives out, but Tuvia goes between them to stop the fight. Tuvia's health was getting worse, and it became evident to many. After the fight, Osael goes to Tuvia and explains that Arkady and his goons were taking food for themselves and spreading rumors about Tuvia. That Tuvia is no longer fit to lead the partisan. At the October Otriad's camp, Zeus confronts a drunk Gramov for beating a fellow Jew. Victor made Gramov apologize. In the next scene, the October Otriad marches through the thick snow. People line up for food at the Nalibaka forest camp, but Arkady and his companions keep it for themselves. Tuvia sees Osael's face all purple. This infuriates Tuvia and calls out Arkady. Arkady faces Tuvia and declares a new policy that fighters get enough food. There's a rebellion taking place. Tuvia maintains that everyone receives an equal amount of food resources because of this belief. The delinquent Arkady says to Tuvia that he is no longer the commander. Tuvia turns his back as if defeated, then faces Arkady back and shoots him in the heart at point blank. Tuvia then points the gun at the Arkady's goons. 3 days later, Tuvia woke up and saw the beautiful Lilka. Lilka was attending to Tuvia while he was asleep for 3 days. Lilka explains that his health was improving. After a few exchanges, Tuvia went back to sleep. The snow is beginning to melt as a result of the rising Sunday. It was the beginning of spring. The whole camp decides to pose for a photograph. Afterward, the ladies go to a river nearby and wash their bodies in the water. It felt nice to sit in the warm water. Lilka notices Tamara walking about. She invites Tamara to join them in the river. She couldn't since she was pregnant. Tamara is explaining that she was raped while at the ghetto. The guards spot a Nazi patrol and that they are getting closer to the Jewish camp. While a guard was reporting to Tuvia, a baby cried. Tuvia was able to locate the cries and was disappointed that someone broke the rules. Lilka explains the situation and convinces Tuvia to let Tamara and the baby stay. At the October Otriad's camp, the Russians are retreating. Zeus is asking Victor but didn't provide an accurate answer. After a short while, Zeus spots a German scout plane. Tuvia commands everybody to pack up their things and escape further into the forest at the Jewish forest camp. As the partisans were packing, 3 Nazis attacked biplanes diving and dropping bombs at the settlement. Many are being killed immediately. A bomb struck near Tuvia's position and deafened him. He then instructs a few fighters to stay at the camp to slow the German infantry's advance. Osael volunteers to remain with the fighters. A firefight occurs. As expected, the German infantry advances. Meanwhile, the other partisans are at the swamp. They are in a predicament. Tuvia breaks down, unsure of what to do. Osael catches up with others and encourages Tuvia to move. The party then creates a lifeline made of buckles and ropes. The Jewish partisan continued through the swamp. After hours of walking, they made it through land but were greeted by a German tank and infantry. A firefight ensues. Tuvia and Isaac flank the Germans. They successfully killed foot soldiers but are about to face a tank. The tank was rotating its hull and gun to Tuvia's position. Isaac pulls out a stick grenade and runs towards the German position. Isaac is killed in action after failing to toss the grenade. Meanwhile, as Tuvia was about to lose hope, the Germans were being shot from the forest's other side. It was Zeus and another member of the Jewish resistance that joined the October Otriad. They successfully suppressed the German tank and infantry. All four brothers are being reunited again. The movie ends with the Bielski partisans retreating to another thick forest where they lived for 2 more years. In their new camp, they built a school, a hospital, and a nursery. Osael Bielski joined the Russian army and was killed 6 months later after the ambush at the swamp. He never lived to see the child he fathered with Chaya. Zeus emigrated to New York City where he started a small trucking business. Tuvia followed soon after. For 30 years, he and Zeus worked. Tuvia and Lilka married and lived happily ever after. The Bielskis never sought recognition for what they did.